You ready?
I am. Let's go for it.
Let's get it going here. Okay, I show 101 on May 27th. We'll go ahead and we'll start the Beavercreek Township Board of Trustees meeting. First thing I'll ask for is a motion to approve the agenda for May 27th, 2014.
I make that motion to approve the agenda. May 27th, 2014.
Second.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I make the motion to approve the payroll in the amount of $262,304.56.
Second.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I move to approve the bills in the amount of $297,353.71.
Second.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I move to approve the minutes held May 12th, 2014, at the regular meeting.
Second.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
And I move to approve the, make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes for May 19th, 2014.
Second.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. At this time, we open up to any citizens wishing to speak or address the board.
Nope.
Seeing none, we will move on to old business. Seeing none, we will move on to new business. At this time, we will close the new business and move on to the administrator report.
Good afternoon, Board. First item on the agenda is the Little Miami resolution that we discussed 2 meetings ago. And I have a resolution prepared in your packet. This was the suggested language that Mrs. Taft had recommended to the board to include in the resolution.
I just have a question on that. And are we in any way at all, Ms. Frick, opening ourselves up here, relinquishing any authority to this group by this resolution? In the way of the habitat, or having authority over the habitat, over, I think Mr. Kratz mentioned something about private property rights. Are we opening ourselves up here for anything like that? I mean, I'm supportive of clean water and all that kind of thing, and the river, I know it's a scenic river and it's well used and all that, and I'm in full support of keeping it clean and all that, but are we tying ourselves in any way at all by agreeing to this resolution?
Well, I mean, the resolution itself seems to merely be kind of an endorsement by the township of the value of the Little Miami River. I don't know that it obligates you to anything other than that endorsement itself. So I don't see that you're giving up, by virtue of this language, any ability by the township to continue to do what you already do in terms of approving things zoning wise and so on and so forth.
All right.
The last paragraph, I think, defines what it says the trustees will work to or provide, essentially, under the resolution. And I don't see anything where it's anything beyond what would be general responsible stewardship. And like I said, like Mr. Paxton said, I'm one of the ones that brought up as far as protecting landowner rights.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think this is general enough that it's in support of, it doesn't specify.
Okay. I just wanted to double check.
Sure.
All right, well, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve that resolution. You want me to read that?
I think you could say
I
as
think
presented.
as presented.
Approve and support the resolution as presented for the Little Miami River project.
Second.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Thank you, board. Next item in the packet is an agreement between Mr. Shawhan and Beavercreek Township in regards to a lease agreement to lease the new parkland that we purchased. This has gone around the last several months in regards to some issues that were brought up, and then I think I sent some information out over the weekend of how complicated this process has been. This is the standard agreement. It's similar to the agreement that we have currently in place with Mr. Hutchinson on Fairgrounds Road. The difference is that both sides agree, just because of the unknown of what the assessment on the property tax and how much of an increase there's going to be in 14. We felt just a one-year contract. When we first initially started talking to Mr. Shawhan, it was until we did something with the land, and there would be an ongoing agreement. The other issue that we ran into with this agreement is that the previous landowner essentially had a handshake agreement in regards to the lease. So putting it in writing was something new for Mr. Shawhan in regards to our property.
I had a few questions just on this. In general, I'm in support of it, but I just like a few clarifications. One is why the term is through March of 2015 and not through the calendar year end 2014.
The reason being is for tax reasons. In the agreement, you'll see that that he is Mr. Shawhan has agreed to pay the property tax to the county auditor. So to have the agreement in place, we wanted to make sure that it was in place and by the time tax bills would be sent out, and that we would still have a contract in place to require him to pay the property tax.
Okay. But he's only paying the accrued taxes through the end of the year.
Correct, just for 14.
So when the January tax bill hits, that's what he'll participate
Yes.
in. Okay.
You know what? I'm just, can I say something really
Sure.
quick? If you wouldn't mind terribly postponing this, I've had no discussions. I don't know what's going on with this. I don't feel comfortable having you guys sign something that then my office might be responsible for either obtaining taxes or knowing what taxes. You guys went and talked to the auditor, and that's great. I would just like to know, I'd like to have more information before you guys move forward so that I can say, yeah, I understand what's going on. I got your back. And I don't feel like I have that right now, if that's all right.
Okay. Well, if we can, let's work through maybe some of these other questions. That way, if there's anything else, we come back with all the. I guess first question, Mr. Harif, is there a timing issue as far as when we need to have this signed by?
Yeah, Mr. Shawhan is very eager to go ahead and get something in the field.
I was going to say planning.
Yeah, plan it. He's ready to move as soon as we sign this to go ahead and start planning. It was delayed, obviously, for all the changes and obviously the property tax issue that we ran into. So essentially, we started talking in February with Mr. Shawhan, and so it's been delayed just so that we, legal and myself, I had time to make sure that the township wasn't responsible for any of the property taxes. And the language there is pretty much what the auditor recommended to us in regards to the property tax issue and who pays.
Okay. Which is typical for other.
Yeah, that's the first thing Mr. Graham said to us was, have whoever's leasing the property pay the property tax.
Right. Okay.
The biggest issue is the fact that it's going to be assessed this year,
Right.
and everybody is confident there is going to be a pretty big jump.
Right.
And we didn't want to give a set number and then the township be holding the bag on additional taxes that we didn't account for. And because of that, that's why, and Mr. Shawhan understands this and was comfortable with this, that he agreed that he would pay the full amount of the taxes, whatever they end up being.
Okay.
The township will still be billed for the taxes, though, since we are still legal owners of the property. We would have to recoup our money back from Mr. Shaw. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That would be my question is, was it just an agreement, or is there a contract in place to guarantee his payment, or was it just
Well, this would be the
This would be
contract for it.
for him to pay this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and originally, the lease agreement with the previous landowner was just under 7,000, depending on what year. Mr. Shawhan initially came in and agreed to 7,100 a year. The question was, just like Ms. Frick just said, is we didn't know what the assessment was going to be, and we've been pretty much guaranteed that it was going to increase, but we don't know how much. So that's why the language written is that he would pay $1,000 for the lease, be responsible for the property tax, and pay the difference of whatever that property tax may be. And it may be over.
Nothing.
Yeah, it may be nothing. So we may not get anything additional other than the $1,000. But he is solely responsible, and he's willing to take that chance of potentially a significant increase in the property tax.
Okay.
That part I was comfortable with as far as placing the burden of who pays the tax and when, and if there's an overrun. That part I was comfortable with.
We still actually will have the burden of paying the tax. We can't reassign our burden. We're just recouping the reimbursements on the back end.
We're recouping.
So we would still legally be responsible for the tax.
Correct.
That would be the question I have. We don't know what the taxes are going to be on it.
That's correct.
No,
He doesn't know.
the auditor doesn't even know yet because they haven't gone out and done.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the assessment. And we couldn't even get an estimate. I mean, Mr. Graham would not even want to try to guess what the property value is going to be. Now, Mr. Shawhan did tell us that some of his land up in Clark County almost doubled. So Greene County is up next on the assessment of the farmland.
Just farmland? Just farmland or just land?
Well, it's the land, but
Tillable.
tillable. Yeah.
What is his understanding as far as storage of equipment, storage of fuel, hunting rights, subleasing?
We did talk about temporary storage, and there is some language in here that on some of the storage. He knows he can't build anything and isn't planning on building anything on our property. And he also knows the township has a hunting policy, which in the future I would probably this fall recommend, potentially opening up at least the wooded area to the lottery system. If the board chooses to go forward with the policy. There was, as you recall, for Mr. Kretz's purposes, there was an agreement already with a hunter when we were buying the property, and the township agreed to allow that hunter to continue until the end of the bow hunting season. So he understands he's not going to hunt on that property. This is pretty similar with some of the other agreements he has in regards to just handshake agreements.
Right, they're typical.
Yeah.
And I've experienced some of these with the farm that I had in Highland County. So it's generally not even on paper.
Right, yeah.
It's between two handshakes. So, okay, I'm satisfied from that standpoint.
The only number 3 in regards to the lime, that was Mr. Shawhan's recommendation through his attorney, I think after having discussions with his attorney, and that was for a long term. So if he did make that investment to put lime in the ground, that was his cost, but his concern was if it was a pretty significant cost for the 64 tillable acres that he's going to be using. If the township would then choose the next week to turn it into parkland, he was out. So really, I don't think Mr. Shawhan has any intention of putting lime in just for this season in a short-term contract. Now, if it works out well and we know what the taxes are and the board chooses for 15 to continue on with Mr. Shawhan farming the property, then we may go to something like we have with Mr. Hutchinson, where it automatically renews and then have those 30-day notices of withdrawal.
Okay. Item 5, if I read that correctly, it clearly delineates that the township essentially is responsible, like Mr. Berlin said, is responsible to pay the taxes to the county. And this essentially defines that we have the right to collect payment from the farmer within his capacity to pay and our capacity to collect. And so our risk is no greater financially with or without this agreement, we would owe the property taxes irregardless of whether this agreement was in place.
Well, I think you can get the property exempted if you're not
If you're
farming.
not-
Right,
So
right.
there wouldn't be any problem.
Correct.
Right.
Right, we will lose exemption by it being farmed.
Correct.
Yeah, and that was the major issue is when we received the letter from the auditor's office saying, well, if you're going to farm the property, then it's no longer exempt. You know, Mr. Shawhan's willing to maintain those tillable 64 acres on the parcel that we own and take care of it, essentially like we have with Mr. Hutchinson on Fairgrounds.
But at this point, you're looking for a motion then to approve this agreement?
Yes. Now, if there's any changes, I would recommend that instead of having the board sign today, that once any changes are made with legal, that I go ahead and sign the contract on your behalf so that we give Mr. Shawhan plenty of opportunity to get into the...
Yeah, we're going to miss growing season,
Yes.
planting season, so.
I do see one thing that I think we're gonna have to change is in number 5, the first payment being due in April, given that it's already May.
Right.
I think we probably should change that to June or July, and we could even put a date certain.
Richard, do you have any?
You know what, if I'm reading it, if you're comfortable, that's fine. However, I will ask the both of you, please, if you go and discuss something like this, it just helps me a lot more if I know what they're walking into, what I'm gonna be responsible for, so that's all. Also, the only other thing I see on here is that a certificate of insurance is gonna need to be filed with my office. So,
Yeah, since,
Make sure that
yeah,
that-
which Mr. Shawhan said he'd be, at least the first time we met with him, he said it wouldn't be a problem.
so if you guys are fine with it, then.
Do we have a date when that's required by?
Certificate deposited immediately upon the execution of this agreement.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Allen. All right. Make a motion, we approve the agreement with the
Presented changes.
changes being made to the agreement.
And then have authorized me to sign for it.
Authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
A second.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Mr. Kratz.
Yes.
Thank you, board. Next item on the agenda that I have for you is the legal agreement that has the correct amounts and dates in there. Like we've done with Mr. Dunleavy's agreements in the past, I had me sign it, so really I just need a motion today. You've already approved and made a motion hiring him, you just need to authorize me to sign the agreement.
For the legal.
Yeah.
What did he change or amend in this?
What was wrong that we found out when I presented it last time was his fees on Exhibit A. They did not match the RFP that was presented to the board and that you guys voted on.
Did these increase or decrease?
Actually, there was one that lowered and one that increased. So
But it matches?
yeah, it matches what?
Okay.
Yeah, matches perfectly.
Okay. Need a motion?
Make a motion to approve the agreement with Dunlawdy, Mahan, and Fury.
And authorize. And you need to sign and
Yes,
authorize the township
And authorize
administrator.
township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mr. Paxton. Mr. Kratz.
Yes.
Thank you, board. The last item on the agenda is the tower agreement. We had some discussion about this earlier this year. Due to the new county radio system, a tower that was being leased by the county is no longer in operation. Essentially, cutting off Bellbrook, Sugar Creek, and Spring Valley Township to getting information from the county through the dispatch system and the New World CAD system. So Sugar Creek approached us since the information comes from Xenia to this tower here at this location, and then from here it goes to the city of Beavercreek for dispatch. They would also like to put a microwave system in at 100% their cost, Sugar Creek's cost, where the information is then sent out in two directions, still to the city of Beavercreek, then to Sugar Creek. Once it gets to Sugar Creek, it will be dispensed down there on Bellbrook and Spring Valley's costs, from Sugar Creek to Bellbrook and Sugar Creek to Spring Valley Township. This is a contract that's similar that we currently have with the schools, the city schools, in regards to their equipment that's currently on our tower. Both Stephanie Hayden, representing Sugar Creek and Spring Valley Township, and in this case just Sugar Creek, approved it, as well as Ms. Frick.
Will this help fix Spring Valley's problems?
I hope so. Now, I know some of the communication issues, they've done some tweaking to one of the towers down there, and it seems to improve theirs. This will more get the information in regards to what we hear a lot, the rip and run information. They'll get access to the information. So for fire reporting and police reporting for Sugar Creek and Bellbrook, and as well as the fire departments in each one of those communities, they'll be able to access the information and complete police reports, fire reports, and EMS reports.
Chief, you got any comment on this?
No, we support it. It's something that's been in the works or talked about actually for several years, but there's now a good reason for them to move on doing it. So yeah, we support it.
And they've done all the line of sight issues. The signal will be sent from this tower to 64th tower, and then from there it actually, believe it or not, it does hit Sugar Creek's tower at their fire station on Client. And then from there it will be dispensed to Bellbrook and Spring Valley Township.
I see in here that we're going to be doing service work on that stuff. $50 an hour, is that what it is on the tower?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of workload does that burden us with? You know, I guess that's what I'm saying.
I
We're
think,
in the process of looking at it.
Yeah, and I guess the immediate need is if, like, after a significant windstorm, it's just realigning the microwave to point to point. And that's not often. The chief could speak to that, but the system is very stable, and it doesn't really require a lot of maintenance other than the maintenance costs over time. And of course, it will be their equipment, but it's our tower, and we assume that responsibility.
What about like a lightning strike? Is that covered under our insurance or their insurance? How would that be covered? Because we took a hit and it cost us quite a bit of money.
Yeah, I don't know how their equipment would be covered or not. Obviously, our stuff is covered under our insurance, and then our crews would be the ones that would go up to and replacement.
Right.
If they needed to replace equipment. I assume their equipment would be under their insurance. But
We did add some language, and that's number 6, that kind of protects us against that. The Sugar Creek assumes all risk to damage equipment.
In private sector, you would typically have them add the township as additionally insured on their policy, so that we're a named insured on their policy if it's their equipment that's struck. Just throwing that out, I don't know how you would handle that municipality. That in the private sector you would do that. That's the mechanism you'd use.
I can tell you they are in the same risk pool. They're with Otarma as well.
Right.
So, I mean, ultimately,
Who
it's all
else shares the same tower?
This tower here, currently it's the city of Beavercreek and Beavercreek Schools.
Okay. And so replacement of that falls 100% on us if a lightning strike or any damage or wind damage or whatever it was It would be through our insurance,
Only for
Only
our equipment.
equipment-wise, but the tower.
Yeah, the tower's ours.
Okay,
Yeah,
so the reason they're borrowing our tower is because they don't have their own tower.
right.
So but we're not renting our tower to them.
That's correct.
So we're loaning it for our mutual benefit,
That's correct.
but assuming all risk.
Well, yeah, for the tower itself, we assume 100% of the risk.
Okay. It just clarifying, doesn't mean.
Yeah, no, you're correct.
That's a good question.
Yeah, the equipment on there, that, for example, the city of Beavercreek and Beaver Creek Schools, if there was damage to that, they would be responsible for that. But for, let's say,
For their
if there's a tower issue, the wind damage or, yeah, we would be responsible for the tower damage because it's
Okay.
our tower.
In paragraph 4, at the end of it, where it says that in the event emergency service is required and no contractors are available, Sugar Creek will pay Beaver Creek the rate of X dollars an hour. Is that no contractors are available to Sugar Creek, or no contractors are available to us?
We do all of our own work now, so that may be a leftover fragment from when we did use contractors. But we currently do all of our own service work.
Okay, but we're not allowing Sugar Creek to put a crew on
That's
this.
right. And
Okay.
we,
Because that's not
as this is
clear.
developed, we've taken sole ownership and control over being on the tower because we had concerns and issues with other people's contractors in the past.
Okay, and not that they would, but they could. If I were in Sugar Creek's boat and I could get a contractor for $35 an hour, I could send my own contractor to do the work based on the way I interpret this contract. So it might just need,
Well, I think the way it's written, they can have their contractor come in.
but we don't want that, do we?
Correct. We have taken a position where we prefer to have our people do all of the service work. So that's why I was saying, I think that's probably old language from the kind of the first generation of this, when everybody would have their own contractors on there.
So we need to change that.
Can it just say in the event emergency services required, Sugar Creek will pay Beaver Creek the rate of
That's what it
$50?
Yeah, we'll just strike that and no contractors are available.
Because if we're responsible, we want to be in control of who
Right.
goes on that tower to repair.
Well, I think they have to redo that whole paragraph because it makes reference to their designated contractors. So
Right.
I think we've got to redo that.
Okay.
Okay. Other than that, it seems reasonable.
If the board's comfortable with Ms. Frick coming up with new language with that, we can go forward with approving the contract and me signing it once, and of course I'll send it out to everybody with the new language.
Okay, shall we wait to
Or we can wait till the
sign it
ninth.
as it is, or?
Is there a timing issue that we need to expedite it, or is it?
I get the impression Sugar Creek and the other communities want to move forward as quickly as possible on this, but,
How about
if
while
you feel
we're-
comfortable on the,
Yeah, maybe while we're working on some other things on the agenda, we come back to this. Ms. Frick can reword that paragraph
Yeah.
while we're here.
yeah, we can do that.
All right. Anything else for the administrator?
Thank you, board. That's all I have for today. Just a reminder, tonight's meeting at 7 o'clock.
Ms. Gustafson.
Hello, good afternoon. Well, I submitted my biweekly report. As you can see, we are still very busy with negotiations, and we actually have an executive session scheduled today to update you on our most recent meetings. But beyond that, did you have anything specific that you'd like to ask me based off of the biweekly report?
Yep.
I'm sorry? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Zoning, Mr. Amrine.
Good afternoon. Let's see, first thing up for me is an appointment to the zoning commission. As you know, we had a resignation at the last meeting. Dr. Flexman has moved out of the township and resigned from the zoning commission. And one of our alternatives has agreed to step into the regular position. That makes it easy. So I'll be, in one of the next couple of meetings, I'll be coming to you again with an appointment to another alternate to replace Ann. But she has agreed to step up to the regular position, so.
And what is her background? What's her resume?
She's a she's an instructor in nursing at Wright State and active in local 4-H, equestrian activities and so forth. So she's been something of a voice of concern for environmental issues when she's present at meetings and speaks out on those issues, and I think it's a welcome point of view. She's well educated and speaks thoughtfully and clearly when she has something to say. But
It's been 3 years?
I'm sorry?
How long has she been alternate?
Let's see.
3 years?
She was appointed in 2011.
Okay.
Normally, her own appointment as an alternative would have expired March 31st of 2016. With this appointment, she would assume the unfulfilled term left by Dr. Flexman, so that would go until March of 17, an additional year before she'd need to be reappointed.
Mr. Amron, when we have these vacancies of a retirement or someone moves on, whatever it is, do we typically notify the community that we're looking for someone to fill that seat, whether we have alternates?
I did not in this case because we have qualified alternatives ready to step up. Now, when we have a new seat, when we have an overall vacancy, if, for example, one of the current alternatives had decided they did not want to step into the regular position, then I would have advertised more widely and would have announced the vacancy. And now that one of the alternative seats is vacant, I'll advertise to the wider community. I think, and you may disagree with this, but it's my opinion that it's a good idea to get your feet wet as an alternative on a board like this, learn how it runs and so forth. And so at this point, Ann is familiar with the workings of the zoning commission, and I think is qualified to step right in and hit the ground running. So if you feel I should have advertised with Dr. Flexman's resignation, I'm happy to switch that around. I can do it either way.
Not necessarily. It's trying to understand the process.
No, I understand.
As a previous and most likely future consumer of those board services, the consumer can at times struggle with dealing with an individual that may not have development or commercial property or even residential property type setting, building, development, construction. Not that everyone has to have your resume, obviously. Not everyone's going to have built bridges and roads and highways, but there's an appreciation of that when you are on that side of the table. There can be frustration when you sense that the person on their side may be very intelligent, articulate, and have great interpersonal skills, but has no experience with construction standards or drainage or things like that. So it doesn't mean that they can't make a great board member, and it should be a cross section of the community, not necessarily one dimension, but just pointing that out. So I've not in Beavercreek Township, but I've gone before boards before, and where an individual was maybe 18, 19 years old, had no experience ever, and it was extraordinarily frustrating being on the other side of that table. So I don't think that's the case here. Just pointing that out. So if you have someone that you've designated as an alternate, I think it's logical that that person takes the next step in the vacancy And then, like you said, there's a period here of the balance of the existing term, and
Right.
if the services are great.
And since she's been part of the board now for 3 years, she's seen the goings on and
I
how
think she's earned that right.
All right. I support that recommendation and we'll read the resolution to,
I'm sorry.
I said I support that recommendation and we'll read the resolution
Okay.
to approve that. Whereas Ohio Revised Code 519-04 permits the Board of Township Trustees to create a zoning commission for Beavercreek Township, and whereas Beavercreek Township Trustees have considered available applicants for said zoning commission, I support your recommendation to appoint Ann Stalter to that interim position to fill Dr. Jerry Flexman's spot.
I'll cut and paste it, it'll.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll second.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes,
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
okay.
Thank you. Next is a letter of support that's, it will go out with the township administrative signature with your approval. This is a letter of support for ODOT as it pursues funding for the next steps in the Route 35 improvement project. We have sent several such letters in the past as the project has wended its way through various stages of approval. Where the project is now is that there's an annual funding application process referred to as track funding, and the project is nearing the end of the stages for which it's funded. The environmental report is nearly completed, and stage 1 design work is, I would guess, about 60% now complete, maybe a little more than that. There is the next phases in the project include parallel work on right-of-way acquisition and stage 2 and stage 3 plan development, which means detailed engineering work. And there is no funding in place at the moment for those two pieces. I believe that what ODOT is seeking for stage 2 and 3 plan development is about $4 million from the state, and for right-of-way acquisition, something in excess of $5 million. So they'll be turning in their application Thursday, and they really appreciate having letters of support to submit with the applications. They can come anytime, but letters of support submitted with the applications seem to have a little more impact. And so we've prepared this based on letters that we've written in the past, and look for your continued support for the Route 35 improvement project.
You want to go ahead or you want me to?
No, go ahead. I do have more concerns about it.
Sure.
You can't.
Say again?
You can't. You have to pass the gavel and then.
Correct.
If you can speak, but before you make a
Right.
motion. Okay.
This is not a motion. I attended, there was a meeting this morning in Station 61, and it was ODOT and stakeholders on the south side of 35.
I see.
And it was a emotional and heated meeting
Okay.
at times, but it evolved into what I would consider to be a positive work session. Okay. The bone of contention has remained throughout for the last 2 years: front door access to Premier, to Tractor Supply, and access on the north side of Circle K, not the west side, not coming in from Orchard, but
Right.
coming in from essentially Premier Drive being cut off
Right.
with the current and with all of the reiterations of design that they've had. So when we started the meeting, Premier Drive was still cut off in the latest reiteration. Tractor Supply has provided a letter to the owner of that property that if that project goes through, they will not execute their lease and they will vacate that property. Premier, with the current design, only has access if you go down south on Orchard to Valley Springs, turn left on Valley Springs, and then come up through essentially the warehouse entrance to
Right.
Premier. Circle K is essentially the only way to get into Circle K is to come in through Orchard Lane. And ODOT has reworked to Steve Sexton's satisfaction as best they can, and egress and ingress into and out of Lang Chevrolet. When we walked out of that meeting, essentially, there was a suggestion made as far as a redesign concept that would reopen Premier and grant two-way traffic access up and down Premier, and essentially relocate the entrance to the ramp heading eastbound towards Xenia.
Further south?
No, further east. So put that ramp essentially at the end of Premier Drive.
Oh, okay.
Start the ramp there, put a traffic
wow.
signal there.
Okay.
And essentially, that changed the entire dynamics of the meeting, because until then it was quite vocal, it was emotional, it was about the number of jobs that are going to be lost, about Tractor Supply leaving. And so what I would prefer to express my support of the project after I see that they move forward with those changes in the design. Because until then, quite frankly, Jeff Schmidt is already looking for a new location for the Cadillac dealership and the Mazda dealership. Tractor Supply gave us a letter at the meeting that said they're leaving if this happens. Milk Mart has produced a letter from Circle K saying they're going to close that gas station if this happens.
Oh, that's interesting. They just applied for a permit to upgrade all the signs on the
And part of it is the basis that there's always will this really happen? It's been in discussion for
Right.
20 plus years.
since it's been in the works for so long.
Right. But the process is accelerating. And
Right.
so as it accelerates, it tends to grow traction. As it grows traction, funding becomes available. So there was complete support of the Trebine interchange and of connecting Shakertown to Yellow Brick Road to eliminate that. But there's still a bit of turmoil. Keith from ODOT was very interested, and his engineering group was very interested in that tweak that we came up with this morning. And if that happens, I would support this 100%.
And that speaks to,
Because it satisfies the front door access to Premier, to Tractor Supply.
and this is exactly how this process is supposed to work, right? And this is exactly the time when these are supposed to work. I mean, stage one design is not detailed engineering. They haven't spent millions and
Right.
millions on it, and now is the time to be making those changes. So
They have spent millions on this.
well, I understand that,
Right.
but the detailed engineering hasn't been done
Right.
yet on it.
The other thing that came
So-
out of that meeting was a $20 million alternative. This is a $110 million alternative. And they did agree that the other $20 million alternative, because they had a price for it already, that it was a possibility, but they had to do another study to determine if it was going to solve the congestion issue. That $20 million alternative was essentially adding a third lane. The question was, what's the number one problem? It's congestion. It's determined that it's not safety. Safety is a concern. And I've voiced numerous times that how can I argue, is one life worth 100 million? Well, if it was my kid, it's worth 100 million. Okay, there's no question. I'm not going to argue that with any parent or family. As a taxpayer, if there's a $20 million solution that solves 90% of the problem, that needs to be exhausted, in my opinion. So I've soapboxed enough. I would not be in favor of signing this until I see them come back with at minimum a review and a proving of what they agreed was a great idea this morning. And once that's there, I think it wouldn't only, I think you could also have that business community would sign along with you. And that's probably as important or more important than our signatures. If those business leaders,
I'll be curious to see how those,
I believe Langs would, and I believe Tractor Supply would.
right. It'll be interesting to see how those concepts get rendered on paper. I'll look forward to that. That's going to be interesting from
It was unique.
from the perspective of an old construction manager.
Right.
I'm looking
It
forward to
solved,
seeing it.
it solved two-way open access on Premier. It solved semi-truck deliveries turnaround. And it actually potentially increases the value of land on Valley Springs. So,
Okay, I will communicate the sentiments of the board to Mr. Smith.
that's my sentiment on Mr.
Well-
Jackson's speech as well.
Well, no, I agree. I think the business owners down there have a concern. And I think it's great that their concerns being addressed some way, as opposed to be just deal with it because we're putting this in. But I think it's great that their concerns are being addressed. And,
It was a very positive ending to a very
Good.
lively start.
Well, in the past, what the township has stated, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm new to this whole project, but one of the primary concerns of the township as an official statement of concern was access for emergency vehicles to the southern part of the township, and Orchard Lane being our primary way to do that. As long as that is maintained, then I don't see why the township couldn't remain in support. So,
And based on the new concept that it evolved in the meeting, that access to the front door, right now, with the current concept, you would have, well, you can go where you need to go, obviously, but this is less restricted access to the front door. And it actually creates another, the completion of a little stub road that's already in place at Circle K. So the flow was tremendous.
okay.
There, just to update the board also, is that the state has asked if there is a local match to the project, much like any project, since the city of Beavercreek is the sponsoring agency in regards to the entire project from Shakertown all the way to Trebein Valley Interchange. They currently cannot afford the local match. I was CC'd as well as the county administrator and I'm sure that there will be further meetings in regards to that topic of local match between the county, the township, and the city. But right now, currently, none of the jurisdictions have budgeted for it or can afford it. So, and then we're talking a significant local match for that entire project from Shakertown.
what about if it was a $20 million version of the
Still the local match component.
The local match is a
Right, but I'm saying it
percentage of
wouldn't
the
be-
total.
Yeah, it's a percentage. It wouldn't be as much.
based on a percentage of the
But
final?
it's funny how the city didn't talk about that at the joint meeting, because they stood up there and talked about this project like they were 100% in, and they were backing it, and they would, so
Yeah,
they're backtrailing too after they just passed a levy. It's interesting, isn't it?
Well, and I'm sure there will be discussion between the county, and I would venture to guess that that stakeholders in regards to local jurisdiction will probably grow, because I think this project not only affects Greene County, the township, and the city, but it does have some impact on potential growth in the city of Xenia and Xenia Township. And as we know, that attending some of those meetings, Xenia Township trustees have been very vocal about this project.
They're in
and
favor of it.
Yeah, and they're in favor of it, and they see, especially at one of their interchanges at Pickett and US 35, that they identified that area, much like we have in our little highway corridor, that's going to be an area for potential growth. Right. So I see the local jurisdictions expanding not just Beavercreek Township in the county, but it could go
Well,
beyond
a
that.
case could be made that local benefit is even, extends further out than that, easily to Dayton and Montgomery County. But Route 35 could become a major east-west connector from the eastern seaboard all the way to Route 75, which is the single busiest north-south interstate in the nation. So, and forgive me for a second, but and you might think it's silly to say things like this, but when you think of the deepening of the harbor at Charleston and the widening of the Panama Canal and all the freight that's going to be coming from Asia into Charleston, how's it going to get to the heartland? An awful lot of it's going to be coming up Route 35 if these lights are eliminated. It's speculative, sure, a little bit, but planners have to think long range and big picture, and so I think the cost sharing maybe we should find ways to extend the cost sharing on that too if the benefits are going to be so widely spread.
The concern of the stakeholders is that traffic will zip by at 65 miles an hour and head to Montgomery County, and the taxes that they pay to Greene County will essentially diminish because of that.
Exactly.
But there's always two sides of the coin on the edge.
Right.
So,
Okay, and let's see where I head next. My biweekly report. In addition to considering questions, we submitted a draft for an employee recognition program, finally a draft policy statement. And at this point, I would simply like to request a work session, a special meeting of the board so that we can get together and do the work of hammering out the policy. My recommendation would be, let's look at our next meeting date, the 9th, right? That is our next trustees meeting date, and meet for, let's say, an hour either before or after the regular trustees meeting, and if we need additional meetings, go to it that way.
I can do before or after, whatever works better for everyone else.
I won't be here that day. So somebody else will have to take the notes.
Yeah, I'd say stick it on there before.
Before.
Yeah.
If you
Does that work?
can't. No, I think it's not going to be anything.
Before work for everybody else?
Yeah, before.
You're
I
not.
think so.
I'm not going to be here, but yeah.
So
June
noon-
9th?
Noon on June 9th?
Noon on the 9th. Great.
Sorry.
And with that, if there are any questions about the biweekly report, I'll be happy to answer them.
To discuss employee recognition program.
Any status as far as MI homes, when how that's progressing? Moving?
Tim actually has more to say about that than I do. The storm had some impact, but I will let Tim describe what that was. And I think he'll do that during his bi-weekly report. But they're chugging ahead. There's a lot of activity out there this morning. So we expect to see permit applications here before too long.
Okay. Any further activity on the Arnold property that was or adjoins the Gilbert Party Barn property on?
We put a sign.
I haven't heard a thing since
Did we resolve the issue of having a fire hydrant on that road?
nothing has come to my attention since it was presented and roundly challenged at the Regional Planning and Coordinating Commission meeting a couple of months ago. I haven't been approached either by Mr. Arnold or by his engineer since then.
Okay. And River Reserves is still incubated?
Nothing. The only action from the Arnold camp has been on Bex.
Okay. I have no other questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Mr. Terry.
Good afternoon, Board. Per our 12 May meeting, I have the independent contractor agreement back after Ms. Frick reworded it, put the new language in there to extend his contract for Mr. Erickson's contract for 4 months or the 320 hours. Mr. Erickson is available and has signed the contract. I have 2 copies of that. I did include it in the packet. Have a couple of copies. Just keep them on file. And either the board or Mr. Zaharia can sign. Well,
They didn't. No. You did not approve this, so you will need to make a formal resolution.
Right, we approved
yeah, there was no motion. Right.
We approved the framework of the hours and the.
That's all that language has been.
Yeah, so
put
you
in.
need to.
Did you do a motion for them to approve? To read?
No, I had one last week, but
We could use this.
Can you email that?
Update 32 hours.
Can you email it so that we can cut and paste for the minutes? Can you
okay.
email it to me?
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks.
320. All right. Make a motion to approve the contract to James Erickson as presented. And have the township administrator sign for the board.
Second.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
And the only other thing is my bi-weekly report, and be happy to answer any questions if there were any on that at this time.
I'm having problems with my computer. Did you download or upload a new Adobe program? I was trying to download the agenda for this meeting, and I was getting Adobe flashes all over the screen. I couldn't download it
On your iPad?
on my iPad, even on a laptop. But not a laptop, but my home computer. I had it sent there, and I couldn't get it off there. This Adobe screen came up. I'll try to duplicate it for you. And
Okay, is that on your, were you on your,
it's
on
on
your
this.
machine, or were you through the going through the receiver logged into Citrix at the time? Was it on your personal laptop?
Yeah, it was in the form of an email. So
Okay, but you were trying to open Adobe on your laptop, your personal laptop?
I have it on there, but
Yeah,
I never
it's-
had an issue with that before. I was just wondering if there's an updated. Did you update the Adobe at all or something out there?
We keep the updates, yeah, on our side, but it wouldn't, I don't have access to your laptop to update it. You would have to go in through Adobe site and do the updates on that. Now, if it's on your iPad, it's not cooperating, and
Well, it wouldn't
I
come
can
up on
check
my
that.
iPad. It wouldn't come up on my iPad. That's why I had it.
Okay, yeah, I can check the updates on that for
Yeah,
you.
all right. I just was wondering if there was an Adobe
There was a reader update.
update. Okay.
But that should have downloaded automatically. I can take a look after the meeting or when, at your convenience.
All right. That answers it. If there's an update, that's fine. It is. All right. Thank you.
How many phone lines do we have going in and into each station, roughly?
Not sure exactly on the stations. That would probably be
I believe there's 2 per
Just
station,
this-
2 for voice, and then there are up to 2 for fire alarm.
And what's the primary use of those lines? Is it employees calling out, or is it calls coming in because they couldn't reach via radio or some other dispatch mechanism?
I honestly couldn't tell you which is more. I mean, it's used for both, but I don't know which is predominant.
Yeah, used for the intercom, really, for
Do you want to keep this?
most utilized from station to station and township. So.
Just curious. And the work that was done for the sheriff, that was on equipment that was in the sheriff's vehicle?
We have not touched anything on the vehicle. They had, they would like us to upgrade their laptop as well, but we
I guess
did.
I'm looking for more of the work that we did, that you had noted in your weekly report, you had done some work on one of their PCs.
Yeah, we upgraded it, but because they were running Windows XP on their local boxes in there, so we just put a copy of Windows 7 on it and Office 2010, just updated it. And we did just, they did have a internet connection problem. The Time Warner, we've come to find out, they changed their gateway address and didn't bother notifying us. We didn't get an email or anything. So after getting on the phone with them and Mitch Fletcher from Greene County came down as well, and we got that squared away.
Okay. So when we perform that type of work, that's part of our sheriff's contract? I don't know why I'm looking at you, I apologize. I'm just having to look at you. That's part of our contract, that we maintain not only the equipment in the vehicles, but also their equipment here.
Yes, in the substation. We did, it was,
It's a
we ran into the same problem everybody else did, is when XP's, Microsoft said no more XP. And one of the things that the sheriff has always been using XP in there, and it was all of a sudden to them, the county comes to us and says, oh, by the way, it needs to be updated. So, yeah, so, and everything in there is inventoried and is on our inventory.
And it's part of our agreement.
Yeah, it's part of our agreement.
We support that
Yeah.
equipment for them.
Yeah.
So, okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Clerk.
Thank you.
Tom, do you have the other agreement for Jim Erickson?
For who?
Jim Erickson,
Oh,
the
yeah,
IT?
I didn't sign it.
No, Alex is going to sign it. Thank you.
Mr. Parks?
Good afternoon. Light schedule today. I just have two resolutions that you requested me to do to ask the Greene County Auditor to certify the monies for renewal plus increase. One is for the $500,000 existing with a $4 million increase, and one is renewal of a $500,000 increase with a $3 million increase. And I think the fiscal office has the resolutions for you.
5.3, and this is 0.4. And you don't have to read, I'll cut and paste, but one's for the renewal with an increase of 0.3 mils, and the second one is the renewal plus the 0.4 renewal, or no, to ask the county auditor to certify.
Just
that.
So certify it.
Just to certify.
Ask them how much it'll bring in.
Yep.
Okay, this is to look and see what these will generate.
That is correct.
Certified, right?
All right, I'm just reading this, and it says, Beavercreek Board has determined necessary to levy a tax outside 10 mil. I don't feel it's necessary. I think we're looking into that right now to see if it's necessary.
Excuse me, but let me just explain the way I understand it.
Okay.
We have already levied a $500,000 tax outside the 10 mil. So we have determined that was necessary unless we're not going to do anything at all. What we're doing now is seeing what the additional will bring in for us.
All right. Just wanted to clarify.
The third clarification.
Okay. All right, I make a motion to go ahead with this and have the auditor verify what these,
Do me separate. Give it point.
Do one, just say,
one of
one
them.
of them first,
Okay.
do with the, you can read this, just that paragraph.
all right. Whereas Beavercreek Board of Township Trustees, Greene County, State of Ohio, have determined that it's necessary to levy a tax outside the 10 mil limitation for the general construction and reconstruction, resurfacing, and repair of streets, roads, and bridges as authorized by Section 5705 5.19.1 of the Ohio Revised Code. Whereas the Beavercreek Board of Township Trustees proposed that said tax be renewed at a 0.5 existing levy with additional increase of 0.4 mils for a total of 0.9 mils as authorized by the section 5705.192 of the Ohio Revised Code. That's one.
That's what is in the trustee packet too.
Section 505-03B requires that the township to certify to the county auditor a resolution requesting the county auditor certify the township the total current tax valuation of the unincorporated area of Beavercreek Township and the number of mills required to generate a specific amount of revenue or the total dollar amount of revenue that would be generated by a specific amount. So that's for the renewal.
That's for
plus
the renewal
0.4.
plus 0.4.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Okay, now, this is the
Same thing.
same wording, but the millage is different. It's the existing renewal of a half mil, 0.5 existing levy, with the additional increase of 0.3 mils, for a total of 0.8 mils as authorized by the section 5705.192 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Perfect.
Second.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Thank you, board.
When can we expect those? How long does it take for them to respond to them?
Depends on how busy David is, but
You should have it by the next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's relatively quick.
Okay. Because I know we're under a timing, obviously.
yeah, no, and he knows that.
Yeah, he knows that.
The other thing I have for you this afternoon is my biweekly report, and Mr. Amaran kind of touched on it. We've been kind of spending a lot of time out in the new developments going on. As far as Claiborne Greens, most of the storm should be put in by the end of the day today. We're looking to do a proof roll of the streets, probably if weather holds, by the end of the week. We'll see, because at 1 o'clock this afternoon, the Ohio EPA came out and was having a meeting there with Soil and Water and the developer and all that, because they were on site the last week after the heavy storm and saw some stuff they didn't like, so. But other than that, Liberty Hill Section 2, we're moving dirt. We paid them a visit today and kind of urged them along a little bit to put in their sediment pond as soon as they could and let them know that EPA is in the area kind of doing spot checks. So hopefully that'll get moving, and Gordon White, the developer, has been great to work with up until this point. Whatever we ask, he tries to take care of. So back to the Hills Phase 3. Look to see that one start probably by the end of the month. I think we've got most of the changes in place. They asked for some variances. We spoke with the Greene County engineer. One we didn't really have an objection to. The second one, which was the under drains, which is a new part of the street design, we did. He supported our objection to that, so those will be going in. Other than that, if there's any other questions, I'll be willing to answer them.
I don't have anything.
What was the equipment, the budgetary awareness item you had for the sheriff's office?
At the next meeting, we finally got, we've been working with Debbie at Greene County Sheriff's Office because they were supplying a computer for the car. We had to supply the docking stations. Dell has been very slow in getting back with us on providing that price. We got it late last week, not in time to get this meeting to this meeting, so there are a few things that'll be coming before you next meeting. So
When is the parking lot set to start?
I'm waiting to hear back. I sent those letters out about 5 days ago, and they have 10 days to respond, so I'm gonna follow up early this week. Well, now we're middle of this week, but middle of this week. But we're waiting on the certificate of insurance, a signed contract, and there was one other component, performance bond that they need to provide before we can move forward. Any other questions? Thank you.
Chief. Good afternoon, Board. I have two quick items for you today. The first is a reappropriation for natural gas. As you can imagine, the winter hit us pretty hard as far as our natural gas budget, so we're looking ahead to make sure we have enough remaining for the rest of the year. And we should have a motion, I believe, there to do the reappropriation.
My curiosity was piqued when I saw that Station 63 was $2,500, the rest of them were $1,050. I was just curious, is there more gas appliances up there? I don't know.
I'm not sure,
curious as
and
to
I'm
why
not
that-
sure if they had the same amount to start.
Okay.
So I can look into that and see if, I
I
don't think
know
there's
they put the
anything
new
more
kitchen
appliance-wise.
in.
We didn't add any appliance. I think part of the reason you see that number probably a little higher is the building's older. One of the things on the appropriated only for next year is to upgrade some of that equipment as far as furnaces in that building, to get it more fuel efficient. Because they're 15 years old now.
Yeah,
So they're starting to use a little more product.
it's the oldest building. I was just wondering if there was, but, okay.
It does spend more though, Mr. Paxton. They were within $100 of each other to start, and Station 63 does spend considerably more.
On the average.
Yeah, and I don't know if just installation is not as good or it's escaping somewhere.
Yeah, it's definitely not as high efficiency a building at this point. So.
That's traditional though, and normally every year it does spend more.
It does, yes.
Okay, so it's not. Okay.
Okay.
It is the oldest station.
Okay. So, I need to make a motion and resolution here. Whereas the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township, Greene County, State of Ohio, move for approval of the following. Whereas to reappropriate from account 2192-930-599 contingencies in the total amount of $6,500 into the following accounts.
You don't have to.
I don't think I'm going to name those, but they're in accounts to make sure we have enough funding for natural gas.
A second.
Mr. Paxton.
Yes.
Mr. Kratz.
Yes.
Thank you, Board, and I'm sure the crews will greatly appreciate that come next December. So, the next item for the Board today is a resolution for the acceptance of donation of materials. Lowe's was kind enough to donate about $300 worth of construction materials for a training aid. I mistakenly in your packet wrote roof simulator. It was actually for an entanglement simulator. And can be seen if you visit Station 63. Basically, it's a big box full of wires and ropes. And it's to practice as the crews go through there to make sure that they can get through safely with their gear and air pack. And if they do get entangled, that they can clear it themselves. So there is a resolution there for you.
We weren't given anything.
Scott didn't send that to you? Nope. I'm sorry. Well, we'll hold that till next week then.
There's a number here to read. Is this the acceptance?
I
of
have one to
donation?
read, but I don't have one on letterhead or with a signature plate to sign.
Yeah, I wasn't forwarded anything on that.
Sorry about that. So yeah, we'll just hold that for a meeting if that's all right with the Board. And then with the biweekly report, obviously we'll be discussing some of the contract negotiations in the executive session. That's a significant part of our week. One thing that happened that did not make it on the biweekly report is we've had 2 part-time firefighter resignations. So we'll be working with HR to fill those positions per our previous discussions. So we're not going to wait to have a bunch of vacancies and run a recruit class. We're going to fill those 2 as quickly as we can. So hopefully in the next meeting or 2, maybe we'll be able to bring 2 names back to the board to get those positions filled up.
So you have 2 that have resigned?
Yes.
And you have 1 that is,
We have 2 that have resigned total. Yeah,
and 1 leave?
No, the one on leave ended up resigning. So yeah, we have 2 vacancies.
Are these new?
Wait, I don't think you guys are talking about the same employee.
Oh,
The one that's been going on.
The one that's,
He'll be back. Yeah.
yeah, that is not. I'm sorry. We had somebody else who was on leave and has.
the question is, do we have 2 or do we have 3? So
Okay. Yes, we have 2 resignations, and we do have 1 on leave who we're hoping to have back.
Okay, that answers my question.
In a roundabout way.
Sorry about that. Yes,
Yes.
that's all I have for the board today.
Were those new part-time people or seasoned, or where would you put them
No,
in?
both of them have been around for several years.
Okay.
So this isn't; these aren't quick turnarounds. One for personal reasons, as I understand it. The other for he took a job with City of Springfield, if I remember correctly.
Thank you. Legal advisor?
There's going to have to be quite a few changes to this tower agreement because several of the paragraphs make reference to contractors' work, so we'll just have to bring them back.
Okay.
And we want to make sure that Sugar Creek's okay with any language changes that we have.
Sure. Okay. Anything else? Legal?
No, nothing further.
Mr. Paxson, anything?
I don't.
I have a couple that I'd like to add. Mr. Zahara, I'd like to ask you to just open a conversation with Mr. Cornell on community-wide events such as the Memorial Day event or the 9/11 event that the city's going to host. In the spirit of our meeting, as far as a joint community effort, as far as shared services, that we somehow collaborate with each other when we're going to host an event, and so that when it's appropriate, we can kind of bring the community together as township and city and have officials, elected officials from both, and even the fire chief and other folks that may want to participate in that. So just a courtesy outreach.
At work, just to update the board, Mr. Cornell and I are working with our schedules to do our monthly meeting for June, so pretty early this in the part of the month. So.
The second thing that I'd like to entertain a motion on, and we could wait until the next meeting if we need to, but I'd like someone to make a motion for at some point, would be that we begin our meetings with just a pledge of allegiance and just a moment of silence. We have Memorial Day this week. We have fallen soldiers. We have fallen first responders. And I think it would be nice if we recognize them with just a moment of silence and a pledge before we start our meetings.
I don't have a problem with that. I think Ms. Graff ought to be involved in that.
You're not touching.
Just so she would have I don't see a problem with it on my end.
So maybe at the next meeting we can address that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
Put it under old business.
the third item I'd like to just throw out as a discussion and something that we can consider for the future. We had a meeting last week regarding the renewal levy for roads, and in that we discussed gaining a better understanding of what our internal cost structure is to perform certain functions within certain departments. And what I'd like to encourage the township to do is that we not pick on the roads department, but that we start with the roads department, potentially with a test study, and that we hire a cost accountant, and we potentially, whether we do that within the performance audit or separate from the performance audit, that we do that in relatively short order, and that we determine what our internal rate structure is And my philosophy is we need to know what our internal costs are. We cannot competently or fairly compare our cost to outsourced services without knowing what our internal rate is. This isn't meant to go into an internal billing between departments. That's not what it's intended for. It's purely a standpoint of when we talk to the city or to Xenia or to anyone else, any other municipality about shared services, we need to understand what our cost structure is before we really go into that discussion. When we compare, when we're looking for alternative ways to avoid adding renewals, adding additional monies to levies, the only way to do that is to compare what our cost is to do it in-house versus outsourcing, and can we achieve the same or greater quality of service. So I'm throwing that out there that I'd like to see us move in that direction sooner than later.
Well, that was part of my topic I brought up at that meeting, if you recall, and that's been my concern too, because I think we need to get to the bare bones of what our service is, what it is we're providing, and look at it as what we're doing. And then, like what you're saying, put a cost to it. If it's cheaper to contract out certain services that we're doing in-house, because those services are driving up, in my opinion here, what I'm seeing, levy based off of road department. Some of these other things we're doing on the perimeter is driving up the cost of the road levy. So I think we need to look at what we're doing internally and who's paying for what internally. And along with what you're saying, look at what it is the cost is to us do it versus the cost of somebody else doing it. But I think it's wise that we know, what it is we're doing and how much it costs us to do it. I'm all for that.
Do you have any questions, concerns, Ms. Aarons? What challenges, do we have that capability in-house to determine what that cost is? Mr. Brown?
No, and if this is something that the board is wishing to move as far as hiring a cost accountant, I think it's a good idea. Just keep in mind, it wasn't something that was budgeted for. So if the general fund is paying for it, we need to think about how we're going to do that. And the same with any performance audit or things that we decided to do. It just wasn't something that we thought about when I did the budget last July. So it's going to all need to be discussed as to who would be paying for those services.
Sure.
As far as the study to do those services, right. You know what I'm saying. But as far as that, I don't have any other concerns.
Okay. And again, my concept was just to do an exploratory mission with one department that's of a medium size, I guess is what I would call it, within our own walls, and then look at specifics that we could potentially gain comparables to what would an outside service charge.
And costs of these type of projects is continuing to go up, right. And it was something that we didn't anticipate. So we're already spending.
I understand.
Okay.
There's money to be spent.
Right.
Not that there isn't.
Just, we're going to be spending. We're going to be spending carryover. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Mr. Zahara.
Well, Board, I would recommend that maybe we add it as to one of the outline that was already approved by the board in regards to the scope of practice under Ms. Novak's group, and see what that cost is. I think the intent was the board is to have a clear itemized budget in regards to the performance audit, because if it becomes back at a very large amount, that we would be able to go back in and say, okay, we want to look at these areas here. Right. And I would think, in the short term, maybe we say, we add this, if it's okay with the board, add that to look at, in this case, in the short term, for the levy purposes, the road department, assuming that's the first department we're going to look at, based on the conversation. So that would be my recommendation. If not, we did hear or was presented with another consultant who kind of does these type of things from a Mosaic group that was here. So there's another option for us, but I would say we just add it as part of that itemized category under Ms. Novak's group. Yeah, and what I would
Essentially,
use.
what you're suggesting, all it does is like, it asks them to give us a price to do it.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Well,
So-
was it Novak or was it
Right.
Grice?
Novak is, in
Novak
regards
is
to
the-
that part of the outline, it's, Grice is the HR.
HR part,
and
okay.
the blue-
You said Ms., so she's a Ms., but Novak's a Mr., so that's where I was confused. Are you going with Novak or Grace, or a Mr.
Julia-
or a Mrs.?
It's the Novak Group. It's,
Okay.
the president of the company is Julia Novak.
Okay,
Yeah.
the gentleman
And then-
presented.
And then, yeah, from Mosaic was,
Yeah,
never
I'm with
escapes-
you,
his
sorry.
name escapes me right now, so. And if that's what the board,
Economist group, and economist group studies everything. They'll put a figure to anything and everything you do.
When are they supposed to get this?
I have no issue asking Novak to provide that as, to line item that out as an option.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I think we're both in agreement on that.
add it to the,
Do we need a motion to do that, or we're okay to just make that suggestion?
Well, you've not really hired the company yet
No,
anyway,
it's just
so
we're adding it to the
you'll have the
Would
choice to
you-
pick the things you want once it's done
Exactly.
before you.
it would just be included in their quote to the board,
Okay.
which we're hoping to have by the Thursday before the next meeting, so it'll be in the packet.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have. Fiscal officer.
I didn't have anything, thank you.
I remember that. That's good.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we take a short break and then go to executive session. Make a
You can
motion.
go to executive.
Yeah, I make a motion,
Okay.
yeah.
Make a motion to go into executive session per the Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22 GS. Conferences with attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject to pending or imminent court action. And Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22 G4. Preparing for, conducting, reviewing negotiations, bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
And I guess at that point, the second.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes. And I'd like to invite legal, Mr. Zahara, Ms. Aaron's, to attend, and whatever department heads need to participate.
Yes,